Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Now, Donald Trump is a man who's used to winning, but he categorically did not win the 2020 election. He lost. Joe Biden won. And Trump's been a really, really sore loser ever since. I also believe his refusal to admit defeat inspired and perhaps incited a violent mob to descend on the US Capitol on January the 6th, 2021, some of the most shocking scenes American democracy has ever witnessed. I was appalled by these scenes, and I've always felt that Trump should have taken more responsibility for what was unequivocally an attempt to prevent the peaceful handover of power after a democratic election. Here's what I said at the time. He didn't just cross a line. He trampled all over that line, and he's now a threat to American democracy. And to those who warned this was what was going to happen with Trump, you've been proven right. I stand by that, and I put it directly to the former president. The things I'm not happy about with the presidency, I'll be completely straight with you, to your face. One of them is what happened on January the 6th, which was a result of you refusing to accept the result of the election.
Before you start this,
okay.
Look, Nancy Pelosi is in charge of security. She didn't do her job.
She's half in charge of it. So the Republicans
the mayor of D.C.
and the Democrats have equal share of that.
The mayor of D.C. and Nancy Pelosi are in charge
Actually,
of
the
security.
Republicans and the Democrats have 50-50. But she was actually cowering for terror in fear of her life that day, because there was a huge mob of people who were attacking the centre of democracy in America. I want to read you what Mitch McConnell said, who's the Senate Minority Leader.
Well, Mitch McConnell is
I know.
not a good representative.
You can respond to what he says, but he still remains. He remains the senior Republican.
Unfortunately.
Okay, but he is right now. Okay?
We'll see what happens.
Okay, fair enough. But he said this. He's acknowledged that Joe Biden was the legitimate winner of the 2020 election. He's rejected your claims of fraud. And he said about January the 6th, we were all there, we saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. He told this to the Senate on February the 13th last year. Former President Trump's actions preceding the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty. He then said there's no question that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of that day. Yeah. And even this, he said about the rioters, they did this because they'd been fed wild falsehoods by the most powerful man on earth because he was angry he'd lost an election.
Okay. Number one, he knew nothing about what took place in the election. The press hates to write about it, but that election was rigged and it was stolen.
You said to me once.
100%.
Okay,
I don't mean a little bit.
Right.
And you know, it's funny, when a Hillary Clinton or when Stacey Abrams says, oh, the election was rigged, nobody says anything. But when Trump says it, but the difference is I have proof, and we have massive proof.
Okay, but let me ask
All
you this
you have to do is take a look.
Let me ask you.
Take a look at the ballot harvesting that took place.
Let me ask you this.
Millions of
You said
votes.
to me once that if you talk the talk, and you're a great talker, I've seen that today, if you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. In the context of your claim about the fraudulent election, it's been 14 months, and we've not seen this hard evidence of the fraud that you say happened.
The press won't report it. The press.
You haven't produced
This is like a communist country.
Where is the proof?
It's all over the place. We have.
It's not.
So
I've read
much
everything. Can I just put another thing to you? Because I've watched this whole debate, Ray, and you've been completely unflagging in your refusal to accept defeat. And
you know why, though? You know why? Because if our country doesn't have fair and free elections, and if our country doesn't have borders, we don't have a country.
Okay.
We have crooked, corrupt elections.
But here's what I would say to you.
And I've proven it.
Here's what I would say to you. I believe it was a free and fair election and that you lost.
You do really believe that?
That's my belief.
All right. Well, then you're a fool.
However,
then you're a fool.
Maybe I am a fool. Maybe I'm the fool in this conversation about it.
And you're a fool and you haven't studied it.
Okay, I have studied it. Well, maybe I am a fool, but of course I've studied it. I've read a lot about what happened with the 2020 election, and I've seen no hard evidence, like I told him, that there was substantial voter fraud. Nobody has seen that. But the bottom line with all this is Trump seems to me to be fighting on the wrong hill about why he was treated unfairly in 2020. There's another argument that he could produce, which I think has a lot more merit. Just 3 weeks before the election, the New York Post published a sensational front-page story about Hunter Biden, son of the now President Joe Biden. Emails found on Hunter's abandoned laptop contained proof that he sold influence while his father was vice president. But the liberal-run social media giants squashed the scandal, with Twitter and Facebook shamefully blocking the Post's scoop. They even stopped the Post having an account. And mainstream media dismissed it all as Russian disinformation. So none of them reported it properly. And some believe that if they had done, it could have swung the election in Trump's favour. In other words, if more people had known about this story, if more people had scrutinised this story, if it hadn't been so wrongly censored, then they might have voted differently or stayed at home. I put this to President Trump. There is another twist in this tale where I think you're on much stronger ground and where I would agree with you, and that is the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, which is what it's become. And it could lead right to the top with Joe Biden. We don't know yet. But it seems to me that the way that mainstream media and the tech giants conspired to suppress that story, literally removing it from social media platforms,
17
not
points.
reporting it, not chasing it, 50 senior people coming out saying this was Russian disinformation, all complete nonsense. There is a belief that that could have swung the election your way. In other words, when you talk about having a stolen election, actually you're on better ground, it seems to me, with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
They say it made a 17-point difference. But you know what? Even without that, I won it, and we won it big, and we won it easily. It was so corrupt, and it was so corrupt in Wisconsin that they're saying, what do we do? They don't know what to do. They caught him. So only a fool, and I guess you're a fool, only a fool would think that was a legitimate.
You think I'm a fool?
I do now, yeah.
Frank Sinatra said the best revenge is massive success. Isn't your best revenge, rather than talking constantly about the last election?
I don't talk constantly, but you brought it up.
You do, you do.
You brought it up.
Come on, it eats away at you.
Excuse me. You brought it up, I didn't. I don't talk about it very much. I do say it was rigged. Mitch McConnell is stupid, and he shouldn't have allowed it to happen, but he did. But if you look at the results, and if you look at what happened, but even you sitting here saying, well, that doesn't matter. But the law,
I think
the
facts
law
matter.
is, look,
I think
the
facts
law
matter.
is,
Mr.
even
President,
the numbers.
with respect, your own Vice President, Mike Pence, says you lost the election.
Mike was
the
foolish.
head of the Republicans
Mike
in the
was
Senate
foolish.
says you lost it.
Mike was foolish, and he was weak.